all you heroes, hawks, heralds, crows, pirates, and wardens. Welcome to the Dragon Age Lorecast, where we unpack, discuss, and galaxy brain about all the lore behind the Dragon Age series.
We are so excited to bring you this podcast. Every episode, we'll be talking about a different topic in the Dragon Age universe. From character deep dives to exalted marches and elven gods, we will cover it all.
There will be spoilers. And always remember, swooping is bad.
Hello and welcome to the Dragon Age Lorecast, where we talk about all things Dragon Age and its lore. I am one of your hosts, Austin, also known as Teacup.
And I'm your other host, Shelby or She-Cup, and I did not forget what podcast we're on. That would be Austin.
Yes, I did. I almost said Assassin's Creed Lorecast, and that is not the podcast that we're doing. If you've listened to any show, you know that I have called Holocron Assassin's Creed Lorecast, Dragon Age Lorecast. I've called this Holocron. I've called it... just all blends in my brain. But anyway, we're here for a special Valentine's Day episode, and we have with us two very special guests, some returning guests to our podcast that we have realized have actually not been on our show together until now.
We haven't. In fact, this is only the second time that we've ever done a show together that wasn't our show.
We are obviously have the hosts of the Two Girls, One Ship podcast, Jennasis and Virvada. Hello. Thank you for being here.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you for having us again, but now together.
Yes. So it is Valentine's Day. I think that's what's happening, or it's the day after Valentine's Day when this episode will release. And so we're talking about love and romance and all great things. So who better to have on the show than you two? So Shelby, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I put in the show notes. Is there any lore to discuss at all in regards to love-based holidays in Thedas? Anything that's like kind of the equivalent of Valentine's Day in Thedas? And there is not anything. But we do have just like one, it's not really love-themed cult. It's more of a lust-themed cult. But I'm just going to throw it in here because it's related. They all go together. Which we have talked about this, I think, in our season like 3, maybe, where we talked about the chantry and like groups in Thedas. And so this is the Daughters of Song, and despite the name, there were men included. Yes, they all referred to themselves as daughters, but they basically were a hedonistic cult that venerated the quote-unquote union of Andraste and the Maker before every other thing. Like, that's the most important thing, is their union. And they don't mean their marriage or their friendship or their partnership in war. They mean their sex life. So good for them. Unfortunately, they were all murdered by Emperor Draken of Orlais. So yes, there's that. And whoever put gift giving in Origins, thanks for that one. Yeah, it does raise approval so you can romance someone. But other than those two things, there's really not much in terms of things tangential to Valentine's Day in the lore, unless anybody knows of anything that I am not aware of.
So my real question here, why does Draken ruin everything?
I mean, I think you can make an argument that all emperors, people with unlimited power, tend to ruin most things.
I'm showing my Star Wars persona here. Like, if I hear emperor in a video game, it's like, nah, on site. You're a bad person.
Plus, the name Draken also sounds like a bad guy name.
I was just about to say that. I'm like, his name is Draken. Like, that's not a protagonist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think because it sounds like Draco Malfoy. Like,
Okay, hold up. Don't be hating on Draco Malfoy.
Oh no, I'm gonna be hating on him. I mean, he is a tragic character, but like he is a bad guy. Come on now.
The reason I hate J.K. Rowling, among many things, is that she didn't allow him the redemption arc that Zuko got in Avatar: The Last Airbender. I will never forgive her for that.
Well, she's not a very creative writer, so
yeah.
Anyway, we won't get on that subject today. If you want to know my true opinions, you can hop in the Discord and I'll tell you. But anyway, so we don't have any like official lore to discuss. So we're going to stick mostly to talking about romances, which is not something we've ever really done on the podcast, except maybe in a patron chat or two. So I'm pretty excited. Basically, we're just going to be talking about like in-game romantic pairings, at least for this first half. So like not necessarily couples that you have to choose to romance, like not a protagonist and a romance, like an in-game couple who just exists in the story. So first, I'll just kind of like talk about the list and then we can kind of go through and say, I like this one. I don't like this one. We may have some heated discussions. I welcome that. It'll be fun. So, we have Dagna and Sarah who get together, possibly, if you don't romance Sarah in Inquisition. Josephine and Blackwall have a little bit less of a relationship and more of a flirtationship. I think it ends by the time of Trespasser if you don't romance either of them. We have Heron and Wade from Origins, who are merchants in Denerim, and in game they don't like ever confirm that they're in a relationship, but outside of the game, David Gator did confirm that they are in a relationship. And then there's Isabella and Fenris can hook up. Isabella and Zevran do definitely have hooked up. Dorian and Iron Bull can as well. There is Wynn and Knight Captain Gregor from the Ferelden Circle. Celine and Briala. Varric and Bianca. Vivian and Bastien, Kaylin and Honora, and then Harding and Kenrick. There may be a few more that we've missed or forgotten, but I think these represent a pretty good list of couples in game that we can kind of have a discussion about. So is there any body who kind of wants to go first in regards to Dagna and Sarah?
I mean, I just think that they're adorable together. I have loved Dagna since the moment I first met her. And I was like, I want to protect you and give you whatever you need in life in Origins. And so I was like, and then when I saw her in Inquisition, I was like, oh, that's my Dagna baby. And then to find out that she can have a happy ending with somebody who will enthusiastically love her as much as I do in Sarah. Perfection. Love it. Love it.
Yes, I completely agree. 100%. Loved Dagna from the beginning. And I just think for Sarah, like Sarah should not be romanced by another elf at all. She just shouldn't. She can't handle it emotionally. She's got too much trauma. She can't deal with it. And that's fine. And that's why I love her and Dagna, because I think they both have that kind of like childlike heart where they don't take themselves too seriously. And I just feel like it makes a perfect pairing.
I agree with Sarah and Dagna. I just want to add for Sarah, like, I see what they were trying to do in Inquisition, where they gave her differing levels of approval caps and approval gains or losses, depending on your Inquisitor's race. Like, it is way easier to get her approval if you're Kunari, for instance, and way harder if you're an elf. But at the same time, I feel like that kind of sucks because it's like a tangible representation of essentially her internalized racism, and then you just get penalized by it if you chose to be an elf or anything else. So it just makes it feels unfair when, I mean, I don't know. I love having defined sexualities in video games, but having something like that just feels a little too far when it's really just you're supposed to just enjoy it. Like the side quest romance type thing is there for you to choose. So I don't know if I would want them to repeat that in future games.
Yeah, I think that's
I think for me with Sarah in that, it's the fact that the idea that to really romance Sarah as an elf, you have to say that you forsake your entire culture that you've been raised in. And for me, that's not someone who really loves that me authentically. If they want me to like have to forsake that because they have a problem with it, like that's a relationship that is not meant to last.
Yeah. That's why I think Dagna and Sarah belong together. Like I did never romance her in my playthroughs, so they were always together and it worked out really well. I think they are good together.
So, what about Josephine and Blackwall? I have never seen anyone have like a strong opinion on this either way. So, I'm curious if any of us do have strong opinions on this.
Not really. I'm happy for them. I mean, Blackwall and Josephine are not either of my romance options. So I love the fact that they have their little cute moments, or at least flirty side dialogue that you can clue in on.
Yeah, I think because it doesn't go anywhere and it's always super safe. It reminds me of like that coworker you have that you know you'll never do anything with, but it's nice to just flirt every once in a while for like a confidence boost because that's all it ever is with them. They don't actually end up together because Blackwell has no self-esteem and Josephine has too much self-esteem to be with him,
As she should.
as she should. So like it's cute that they just make each other feel like those warm and fuzzies, and that's all that it is, and sometimes that's all it needs to be.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. And I think it does make sense, like thematically with who they are, because, Blackwall is very chivalrous. He says milady a little bit too much. Josephine is very like proper and does things the quote unquote right way. And so I think it makes sense for both of their personalities to kind of be attracted to each other more than perhaps anybody else in the Inquisition.
They're two characters that I don't really think about all that much. I mean, I spec Blackwall as a tank and I put him in my party all the time, but he is literally just there to absorb all the damage and don't really pay attention to him that much.
Okay, so let's move on to Heron and Wade, who, like I mentioned earlier, are merchants in Denerim. Heron is the like finance cashier guy, and then Wade, he makes armor and is a blacksmith, and he can make you some of the best armor in the game. And I can't remember if I said this while we were recording or before, but I'll just say it again. They are technically not they don't like confirm their relationship in the course of the game, but David Gator did say, I think in one of the now defunct BioWare forums, that they were intended to be a couple. I think he said like something like, I thought it was obvious, but yeah, they're definitely together. And they do have that kind of like antagonistic thing going on.
I don't remember them, but I had last played Origins a long time ago. But I will say that um, anytime you can add touches like that in a game, even if it wasn't overtly obvious to every player, it was obvious to some players, and some of those players probably were shocked and amazed to see even just a tiny little snippet of a gay couple in a game that came out in 2009. But not even more than that, but just along that vein, it's nice to have NPCs feel like they're real people. I love it. And like a huge part of doing that is making them fall in love with each other or have like already established relationships. Like Aveline in Dragon Age 2 had a husband, and then she can, I think, what's his name, Donick, that she could kind of have like a thing with later. That's cute too. I like that.
The reason Aveline and Donick are not in this list is because you, as the player, affect their relationship.
I was going to say about Heron and Wade, I totally agree with what we was saying. Having relationships that even if you don't get to see a full romance for them or even more than just a line or two, that level of world building is so important and so rare in some of these older games. I love to see it.
And that's one of the things I love about Origins. This is a little bit of a tangent, but I do feel like all of the merchants in Denerim, they all do have their backstories. Like there's the one that can help you become a crow, and then there's the one that's being swindled by the like nobleman's daughter, and just like they all have stories that you can pick up on if you listen to the dialogue or get the codex entries or whatever. But I think that's one of those things that makes that game so awesome. All right, so what about Isabella and Fenris? I have thoughts. I claimed this one in the notes. I hate this one. I hate it so much because part of Isabella's backstory is that she dealt in slave trading. And yes, she was forced to. It wasn't necessarily of her own volition. And she, did what she could to free those slaves, but most of them died in the process. And so I just feel like to put someone who has that backstory with someone whose backstory is literally as a slave, it's really icky and really unethical. And so for me, this one is an absolutely not. Like I cannot get by this one. I know a lot of people out there love it. I love both of these characters individually, and I think that there could be a really good story where like they talk about their pasts and they both like, and Isabella atones for what she's done, and I think part of her story absolutely is that. But them as a couple is just no, too far for me.
It also doesn't feel believable that it would happen because of that. Like Fenris, his whole side quest, like his whole personal quest is about like vengeance on the wrongs done to him. And in general, just like the plight of elves and slaves in general in Tevinter. Like the last thing, and it's not like he would not know that about her.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably well known among the group, if not about her reputation. So I just don't believe that they actually would end up together at all. Also, the way they both approach sex seems at odds.
Exactly. Like I was gonna say, it's not like they're both like hypersexual, like sleeping with the rest of the party. Like part of Fenris's romance arc is that he doesn't want to have sex with you because of his trauma. And so I just find that difficult to believe, like you said. And plus, it's not like Fenris is, somebody who's been a free elf for 20 years or even 5 years. Like the man is still enslaved. He's just on the run. So it's not like this is a healed wound. It's not like this is something that happened long ago and he's lived a whole life. Like, no, he doesn't. He's brand new to the world, like to being a person outside of an owner. So I think that plays a part too.
Yeah, I don't really like this one either. I don't, and from like the physical romance side of it, I don't see them being compatible at all. Izzy knows what she wants and she's out there and she's going to go and get it. And I love that about her. But why from Fenris? Unless it's that little tick in her brain that says, you are somebody that I can conquest. You are somebody that I can, take and mold into a shape that I want to see you in. And I don't like it at all.
That just sounds like opportunity for some more trauma for Fenris, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I like them as drinking buddies. Like get together, have your wine, and swap stories and help each other heal from your traumas, but not through sex this time, which is not something I say often.
I've never experienced this, and I always thought, do they actually like become like couple, or is it just like a one and done?
I think it may just be them sleeping together.
I don't think it's one and done, but it's casual. It's not romantic.
I don't remember this happening. I mean, I remember like if you romance Fenris, Isabella makes some comments. I think, and like part of the like personality conflict is that I don't think that Isabella's joking attitude would ever like Fenris's seriousness. It would be like here's a sarcastic comment. Well, why would you say that? Like, that's terrible. Well, I wasn't serious. Like, that would be the constant fight between the two of them.
That's fair. All right. Well, what about Isabella and Zevran?
Oh, I am all for this one. I love it. I love them together, even if it's just them having their flirty little fun moments. Go for it. I mean, they were together in Origins because we know that they had slept together before. We meet both of them in DA2. I love the idea of the threesome in it. Throw my hawk into the mix. Let's go. Yeah, I think that's fun. I also don't see them in a long-term relationship at all. I think that it is very much just they are there for the fun.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think going back to our previous point about NPCs having lives that make the world feel bigger, I think this is another instance of that where we meet Isabella in Origins. She has a previous relationship with one of our party members. We meet her again in Dragon Age 2. She's our party member. And then we get to see Zevran again. And, it's just a fun, like, circular moment. Does anyone dislike this one? I would venture to guess no, just because they're kind of the similar person, same person, different genders, different like affiliations with groups, but like they have a very similar story.
I don't have anything against it because I mean it's just sex. I don't even know if knowing your NPCs like bone for fun together adds much of anything other than like, oh yeah, people do that sometimes. But that's also just me as a person. I like knowing about romances more than like sexual conquests, but that's all it feels like with them. It's just a way to blow off some steam, which is totally valid. They can do that. I don't really care either way though.
Fair. So, okay, how about Dorian and Iron Bull, which I did listen to your episode on the Iron Bull, and Dorian. I listened to both of them. So I know that Virvada does not necessarily like the Iron Bull Dorian romance. So I guess I just am curious. I mean, I know why because I listened to your episode, but if you can kind of summarize why you don't necessarily love this one for our listeners.
In summary, basically, there's just some weird banter dialogue between the two of them if you have both of them in your party running around. And obviously you haven't romanced either of them. That's how they end up together. Iron Bull is at the start of the game, and depending on your choices, maybe at the end of the game, a Ben Hassrath agent. So he's very much in the Qun as a Qunari. And Dorian is the son of a magister from the Tevinter Imperium. So two people whose peoples are at war. So there's some cultural context there, which I'm totally fine with people coming together despite their political stances of their nations. But Bull will make jokes about like, oh, I'm just grab my horns and I'll conquer you. So there's some like weird colonial stuff there. I know it's super kinky because the bull is all BDSM, and I get that, but I just feel like Dorian wants a true love, and I'm not even sure if up until the very end of the game, even the Inquisitor gets a true love out of Bull because of his spy status, which you can listen to our episode if you want to know about that. But so for me, it's like he's kind of bullying him, and like he approaches sex very openly and honestly, and that's well and good. But Dorian comes from a place where he has had to been secretive. You don't have sex for love, period. But especially between men, that just doesn't happen. So when Bull's like willy-nilly just talking about their sordid affairs, Dorian's like very taken aback and embarrassed. And I just think that's not something you should do to someone you're supposed to love. So I don't know. Like if they just want to have sex, fine, but they kind of paint it as like there is a romantic attachment between the two of them. And I just don't know if they are quite compatible. It feels like Dorian doesn't become his best self with Iron Bull, so I don't really like it. But I know a lot of people really like it, so I don't know.
Jen, I feel like you had something to add.
Oh yeah, a couple of different things. First, I wanted to take it back really quick to Isabella and Fenris because we did talk about their romance on our Fenris episode, and the line that got brought up as being the most icky was at one point in the party banter, she can comment about how she fantasizes about Daenerys oiling up Fenris. And yeah.
Yeah,
So,
unacceptable.
Izzy, you should not be fantasizing about the slave owner oiling up his slave. That's disgusting and horrible.
That's rape, Isabella.
Yeah, very bad. No. Now,
Yeah.
I feel like I need to play a little bit of defensiveness for my bull. In the conquest line, I understand that a lot of people don't like it when Bull says, I'll pin you down as you gripped my horns and I would conquer you. But he doesn't use that word on his own volition. The line right before that, it is Dorian who brings up that word. He says, you stand there flexing your muscles, huffing like some beast of burden with no thought save conquest. So Dorian uses, you don't think about conquering anything. You don't think about conquest, or you only think about conquest. And then Bull responds with, yes, I would conquer you. He's playing off of what Dorian said, not just coming out with like a, dude, I want to take you to the ground.
Yeah, but Dorian's clearly talking about like colonialism, and then Bull tries to make it cute, like, oh, sexual innuendo. I will say in his defense, he does realize what it sounds like immediately, and it's like, oh, because Dorian makes like an awkward comment after that. They both are like, oh shit, I stepped in it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was not the best thing for him to say. I don't think that's even his worst crime. I just think, you know, especially if you don't choose the Chargers and he stays loyal to the Ben Hassrath, like then Dorian's literally with his enemy, and Iron Bull is pretending to not be his enemy. So there's like all this lies built on top of it too. So I just don't think they're good together. I'd much rather see Dorian romanced by an Inquisitor or not at all.
Yeah, I feel like the Dory Bull romance for me, it's a camp romance. It's the idea of like they can romance each other while they're both in this Inquisition moment. But the minute that either of them has to go back to the worlds in which they inhabit, it's not feasible anymore. And I just think that like there's no, especially with the role that Dorian takes in, especially for taking over his father, there's no way that he can, having a Cunari partner, Tal Vashoth or not, brought into the Magisterium, it's a bigger target on his back than he affords, especially since his father was likely assassinated.
Yeah, I get that. I also just want to bring up that it's so ironic for a Tevinter Magister to be bringing or even accusing someone else of colonialism, conquest, of all these things, because that's literally what they did.
For real.
Like,
important caveat to make. They're both peoples are guilty of it. I think I feel about them the same way I feel about who we're going to talk about in a couple, Celine and Briala.
Okay, I have thoughts on that one. So let's get into Wyn and Gregor so that we can get into that one. I know Austin has some thoughts on this one.
I think that like, and the reason that I like this is because I think Gregor, when we're introduced to Gregor, it very much is like, I don't think Origins paints a pictures of mages good, Templars bad. I think Origins really introduces us into this is a complicated issue. There's not a clear right way on this. We're given examples of, you know, good people on the Templar side and good people on the mages side, bad Templars, bad mages. It's really an Inquisition and Dragon Age 2 that we get kind of like showing, oh, one side's better than the other. Origins is very much the neutral game, as I feel about that. But I think that Gregor actually runs a pretty just and fair circle. My only problem with this is a power dynamic, that Gregor is the head of the circle, and Wyn she's not first enchanter, but she is a senior enchanter, so she is up there. I think that he's a good person, and I think that he would try to do right by Wyn at least, and he's up there with my top like 5 favorite Templars.
It's such a long list.
Yeah, I actually don't think I have 5.
Like 2.
Cullen?
Does he count once he's not a Templar?
Yeah, I don't think Cullen counts.
Okay, if I can't count Cullen, that's fine. Then it's just Evangeline, Barrett's. Is that his name?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Barris, Gregor.
That's it.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Cullen and Alistair were my other ones.
But Alistair never became a Templar.
I guess that's true.
Okay, we're getting into the minutia as we always do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really even have thoughts on this one. I know you like the pairing. I would just say I think it's a little bit less of a power imbalance because I don't remember this is like 20 years before Origins happens. So like I don't think he's knight captain at that time. And I don't think she's senior enchanter at that time. Of course, there is still a power imbalance because he's a Templar and she's a mage. But it's not as bad as the leader of the Templars, like taking advantage of a mage initiate, whatever. But still not great. Still a little problematic in my opinion. Okay, so let's get into a really problematic one, which is Celine and Briala. I have thoughts. Let me preface this by saying, I think that the way this pairing is presented in game versus in external media is vastly different. I think if you've only played Inquisition, I absolutely understand completely. Like, oh, yeah, we should make them get back together. Let's go lesbians. Yay. In the book, it's horrible. Celine is the most racist, conniving bitch to Briala, like of all time. Like, murders so many people, like attacks the elves in Orlais, and like throws Briala to the wolves. Like it's horrible. And then she's like, "But I did it for you, my beloved." And Briala's like, "I didn't ask you to kill my people. Like, why would you do that?" So I just think it's horrible and they should not even be together at all. And this is why I have a tendency to kill Celine on my playthroughs in Inquisition. That's all.
I agree with you 1000%. Like, there's not to mention the fact that Briala was her like handmaiden for a really long time. So it just feels gross that like the Empress is taking advantage of her servant, her elven servant. She's super racist, but then she has the audacity to love Briala and be like, "Oh, but you're one of the good ones. Like you're not like the other elves." And that's just really gross.
Yeah.
And she also will promise Briala things like that she's going to help advance her people's station in Orlais and whatever, maybe Thedas overall, but she's not actually going to do anything because she's not. She's like she wants progressive stuff, but she's also in Orlais and the Empress, so she's beholden to all these old prejudices and like the imperial aspect of their nation, which not as much as Tevinter, but definitely does rely on elven slavery. So, and servitude really, but I don't know. It's just once again, bad power imbalance. Also the fact that she is super racist. So it's like Briala being with her, she can't stay with her without reconciling that because Briella is an elven radical. Like it's like the most two opposites attract ever in Dragon Age, and then they should forcibly repel each other also, but they should not stay together.
Yeah.
I 1000% agree.
I am in full alignment. I don't really like them together. No, thank you.
Also, even in a game, like the only way they can end up back together is if you like threaten to reveal their secret love. So it's like a whole bunch of shame added onto it also.
Yeah. I don't really think either of the two of them are really like in love with the other one. I think it's just like they've convinced themselves like it's convenient, whatever, or at least it was. But like the thing about it for me is that Empress Celine is never going to do anything for Briala that would sacrifice her position. Like at all. She's not going to do it, at least willingly. She might overreact to someone making jokes about the relationship, which is what happens in the book. But like she is not explicitly going to do anything to jeopardize her station for Briala.
Performative allyship.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there are a lot of examples of this in our world. I won't get into that, but like people do this all the time and it's shitty. And if you're in a situation where that's happening to you, you deserve better, just like Briala deserves better. I'm glad we all hate Selena and Briala. There are some people out there that really like them. Again, if you are one of these people, please go read The Masked Empire because I think your opinion will change. So let's get into the next most hated relationship in all of Dragon Age, which is Varric and Bianca. Jen, I know you have thoughts.
I mean, I just put a big boo in the script because that's all that this is. Varric and the crossbow Bianca, they can have the world's longest, loving, lasting relationship together. That one's amazing. Full 100% approve of that one. But the little actual Bianca herself, no, Varric deserves so much better. Bianca can go and find her own man. Like, she can have a relationship. I'm not shitting on her at all about, like, well, she doesn't deserve love. No, I just think Varric deserves better.
Mm-hmm. Yes, completely agreed. And like, I remember back in the olden days of this show, we had a really good discussion one time in the Discord about arranged marriages and how, like, it's so much more complicated than like we give it because we don't typically understand that in our culture. And I absolutely think there's something there for that. But at the same time, both Varric and Bianca treat each other badly. Like, they just do. I think Bianca treats Varric worse because she is like, you know, she's had other men. She's sleeping with other people. And at least we don't know that Varric has done that. But also, she comes up into the Inquisition and starts attacking you and is like, if you hurt Varric, da 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 da, when she's the one that got red lyrium spread literally all over all of Thedas. So I can't with her.
Wasn't she married when they met? So she's like cheating on her husband with Varric?
So Bianca's house is a surface dwelling house that still obeys the class system of Orzammar. So there's like a whole subsection of surface dwarfs that are like, okay, we can't be in Orzammar because we're surface dwarfs, but we're still going to have the class system. So she like gets in this arranged marriage, but they like meet Varric, and I know there's relationship before the arranged marriage, but like Varric, the Tethras family is like disgraced out of Orzammar and like are technically kicked out of the merchant class. So like Varric is not a fit match for Bianca.
So, okay, I have the details. Bianca, her family is called Kalnus, which, like you said, Austin, are surface dwarves who insist on the caste system. She meets Varric in Kirkwall. They have a relationship. They want to get married, but the Merchants Guild says they can't because it basically is going to start a clan war because her family and the Tethras family are like, no, it's not going to happen. So they arrange a marriage for Bianca to someone named Bogdan Vaska, who is a member of a powerful Smith caste family. And that is the one that's sending the like assassins or whatever after them when they see each other and, you know, all of that. So that is the details.
And this is like central to Varric's character. Varric does not give two shits about Orzammar's caste system or Orzammar's dwarven culture. Like, he does not care. He cares about Kirkwall. He cares about his city. He cares about his friends. And that's what is important to him. To Bianca, it is important. She's trying to become, in a lot of ways, the first surface dwarf to ever be named Paragon. Like, it matters to her a lot. And so, like, to her, like, preventing a clan war and doing that is good. But, like, to Varric, it's a point of, like, why does this matter? All that should matter that we love each other. So they're immediately at odds because their value systems are so apart from each other.
And sorry, Bianca, my warden was the first surface dwarf to be named Paragon. Thank you very much.
Facts.
All right. Well, what about, we may not have opinions on Vivienne and her, I don't know, partner, whatever you want to call it, Bastien. They're not married. She is technically his mistress, but it seems that they really do love each other. To me, at least.
Yeah, I'm for this one. Vivian knows her role, which was to be the mistress to this man. She ended up falling in love with him and deeply caring about him. And from all accounts, Bastien cares about her too. But it's not some hidden thing, it's out there in the open. And Vivian is even friends with the wife. Like, I don't see anything wrong with this one.
And I think it comes into like when you really talk about like polyamorous relationships, like one of the keys to those relationships is that all parties are on the same page and that everything is up in the open. And I think this is a good example of that. Like, is it traditional relationships as we understand it? No, but it doesn't have to be. Everyone knows their role. They know what part they play in the relationship, and everyone, at least from the presentation we're given, is okay with it.
Yeah, and honestly, Vivian can do whatever she wants. She's got it. Good for her. You know?
Who's going to stop her?
Yeah,
like,
right.
In reality, like, who's going to stop her?
Exactly. That's why you might as well just be okay with it.
Kaylin and Honora, really quickly. He dies, as you've said, but in the wiki page for Kaylin or for Nora, one of the two of them, I didn't have time to like verify the source on this one, but they say that their marriage is just a marriage of convenience and that basically they are just trying to cement the like Logain's family into the line of Theron rule. So basically it's not a love match.
Which is like, when we really want to talk about it, like with Honora, it's kind of why like I don't want to have her rule with Alistair, because I don't want to have to condemn her to a life of another, like, just relationship that she is doing out of convenience.
Yeah, I don't either, because my warden ended up being Queen of Ferelden with Alistair as her king, and I don't like the thought of this girl trying to get with like the next best thing to Kaelin after she already had Kaelin. Like, no, you don't get the second son. He's mine. Back off,
Yeah.
Nora.
I just like can't imagine sleeping with somebody and then sleeping with their brother. Like that's weird to me. No.
I know it's like a thing that happened back in the day where they're like, oh, well, my brother's wife, like my brother died, so I guess I just should marry her. I don't get it. I don't understand why that was ever a thing.
Well, that was a thing when like women could not earn an income for themselves.
Yeah.
So it's less about like, oh, well, now I want to be married to her so we can sleep together, and more of someone needs to protect her.
Yeah.
Someone needs to provide for her. Yeah, exactly. In this case, I know it's like, well, let me just get that Ferelden throne.
Right. And it goes back to like ancient like marriage laws, and that like the woman became property of the husband's family. And so like her sons don't have responsibility for taking care of her, but her husband's extent like family and in-laws do.
Let's go to the last one and then we'll do our mid-break. So Harding and Kenrick, I know Austin has thoughts about this one. So remind us who Kenrick is, please.
So Professor Kenrick is in the Jaws of Hacken DLC. He is the researcher who's researching Inquisitor Ameridan, and I just think their flirtation is cute and I like it. And if I can't romance Harding, then at least someone should be able to.
Wait, is this the guy who talks to his pet fish?
I think so.
Yes.
Sure.
He also like writes her little love notes, and I just think that's cute.
Uh-huh.
I like the thought of like this nerdy intellect guy being with Scout Harding,
who is not that.
Yes.
Well,
who is rugged.
It's like perfect. It's perfect because he wants to go to all these dangerous places and see all of these historical things, but he's a wimp. But Scout Harding has the means and ability to get him into these places. So it's just perfect.
Yeah, it's really cute. I like that.
All right. Well, let's go into our mid-break and then we'll get into some of our other discussion questions.
So you like to read? What's wrong with that?
It's frivolous.
There are more important things for me to do.
That's just her favorite.
Nobody asked you, Tevinter.
I couldn't finish the last one you lent me. I actually feel dumber for having tried.
It's literature. Smutty literature. Whatever you do, don't tell Varric.
No offense, but might I try? I've got a quick hand, after all. Ha, let's see. Oh, when was the last time I slipped my hand into some dark hole? I remember. Long story, that.
You hurt my head sometimes, Solus.
Yes, I have been known to do that.
All right. Well, welcome to the middle of the show where we take time to thank our patrons. Thank you to all our patrons who support us. Thank you to our first patrons, Jennasis and Lisa M. Thank you so much for your support there. If you'd like to join us, you can go to patreon.com/DALLorecast. We are starting new merch. Stickers that are going out for this quarter. There will be one sent out this month. I don't know. It's coming. We've got that coming up. So if you want to get in on that, you can sign up on that tier. Another great way to support us is to leave us ratings and reviews. We do have a review to read today. This comes from It's Brett, baby. It says, what a great episode. Combining my three favorite Dragon Age content creators was just chef kiss. June was my Inquisitor's Valisline, and learning more about it was great. Keep up the good work. And this was obviously on our June A episode. Sorry, I did say that wrong. June A episode, which was last week's episode with Katie from the Split the Veil podcast. And that was a great time. Lastly, come and join us on the Discord. Hang out with us. You can find all four of us on the Discords. Just pick one and join it. And we're probably on there somewhere. And that's all I got.
All right. Well, let's get back into it.
Abominations are always so awkward at family reunions. Have you ever seen an abomination? They are ugly.
Dorian, those words you say, what do they mean?
What, you mean like mendicant? Ultimatum?
No arse when you're mad. Pishanti Kothas. You're swearing, I know it.
Vishanta Kafas. It's Tavine, relics of the old tongue. We still use the colourful phrases.
And it means what?
Literally, you shit on my tongue.
You fear barbarians will swoop down upon you.
Yes, swooping is bad.
Okay, so in this second half, we're just kind of going to go through some general discussion questions about the romances. So I guess I'm going to be more directing this to Jennasis and Virvada. Obviously, Austin and I, we can chime in as well, but more of like an interview style than just like we're all going to answer. So just kind of going first, if you had to pick one favorite or the best romance in all of Dragon Age, what would it be and why? Yes, I understand there's a difference between best and favorite, but if you just want to pick one of those two, that's totally fine.
Okay. So I had to split these up because I know that my favorite Dragon Age romance out of all three games, if I had to absolutely pick, it's the Iron Bull. And I know that there's a lot of weird things about him. And if, he could be a secret spy the whole time and he turns around and kills you. But not in my playthrough. That's never going to happen in my playthrough. So for me, my canon favorite romance is a bull who is fully and truthfully in love with me as much as I love. But as for the best romance, I went with Dorian because it's a relationship that I feel makes him his best. You give him such a confidence boost, such a big, you make him better and more absolutely him if you show him the love that he's been looking for his whole life.
I agree with Dorian about best. I think Cullen is probably a close second, just because it has a really nice full arc of happily ever after, which me as a soulless mancer wishes I could have had. But my favorite romance is definitely going to have to be Alistair, because he was my first. And like he was my first romance in a game, not to mention my first Dragon Age romance. So he has a very special place in my heart. And because I was a human noble in my playthrough, specifically because I found out that I could be queen, I also love that that's what happened. That's a pretty good happily ever after, despite the both of us having the Darkspawn taint, being Grey Wardens. Other than that, it's pretty good ending, kill the um, you know, do the blight, and then we get to rule for Eldon. I like dogs. Bring it. My real husband in real life is a ginger too. No connection to Alistair, right?
I really do think I agree with you guys about Dorian. I think that Inquisition has the strongest romances of all three games by far. And I think the strongest romances in Inquisition are Cullen, Cassandra, and Dorian. I'm so sorry, Soulless Mancers. It's tragic, but I don't feel like it's a full story. It's a great romance. Don't get me wrong. It's awesome and heartbreaking,
It's not
but
the best.
I don't feel like it's done. I feel like there is more that needs to be said. So for me, y'all know Cassandra is my girl. But I also feel like that if Morrigan had been romanceable by a woman, she would be in the running for one of the best.
I wanted to mention Morrigan. The only reason I didn't is because she wasn't romanceable by a woman. Like the way that your love can heal her. I wouldn't say it's the best though, because they're still got a weird, like, oh, we got to go live on the fringes of society and fight my mom kind of ending. But
True.
I love that idea. I wish you could have romanced her as a female warden as well.
And she hates men. She hates them. So it just would make sense, but this is a tangent for another day, I guess. So Austin, what about you?
I really like the Cullen romance.
Not
And
Fenris?
generally, my problem with the Fenris romance right now is that, like, as I've gotten older, as I've been married longer, as I know what like a healthy and true relationship look like, the more I realize that the last thing anyone that exists in Dragon Age 2 is a committed romantic relationship. That's the last thing any of them need right now.
That's fair.
Do they all deserve love? Absolutely. They're not ready for that. They have work to do on themselves that they need to do. So I've kind of leaned away from those being my, like, Fenris is still my favorite romance in Dragon Age 2, but I think that Cullen is such a story of healing that he's probably my favorite best. I think, yeah, there's just something about I agree with Dorian. There's something satisfying and a really good story about allowing someone and walking alongside them in the journey of loving themselves, of finally being able to accept, not only do you love me, but you now love yourself more. And I really like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agreed. Okay, so kind of on the opposite spectrum, hot take. What is the worst romance in all of Dragon Age?
I'm going to keep my secret until the end. Somebody else can go first.
I mean, I'll drop the bomb first. I think it's Anders. Sorry, Jen.
It was not me. I need the internet to take notice that I did not say that, nor was I going to say that.
Okay, I that's
Just wanted
fair.
the world to know.
That's fair. I'll narrow it down a little bit though. I think specifically a female hawk romancing Anders is the worst because he's not honest with you. You don't he hides his sexuality from you. And I think that that's so sad. And even if it is just a developer oversight, it's not cool. And so for me, I'm like, I still haven't ever even romanced Anders because that has turned me off so much from it. So that's my opinion on the worst.
So I have a clarifying question that I want from the video game relationship experts. Do we consider the friendship mance and the rival mance separate romances?
I do.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think the rival mance with Fenris is the worst. I think that there's so much toxicity in that romance that Fenris is not in a place where I hate you so much, so let's have sex. That's not a good place for his psyche to be. I think that's probably the worst.
I think that's good. On the other hand, I think the friend mance with Anders is akin to the soulless romance. It's like that tragic story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really like Anders either, but I can't deny that he, as a friend, or was it as a rival, where he admits he is the monster. It's as a rival.
Mhm.
That actually is good. It's the rival man. Sorry, that I really liked that. I think it's much better for him to realize that he is all messed up. But I'm not going to say
Is that
Anders.
in the? Does that happen after he has that episode under Kirkwall with the girl?
That's after. That's like after he blows up the chantry,
Yeah, it's at
where
the
he's like,
very
"I
end.
am the monster." Anyway, but I just want to clarify before I say what I think is the least well done, that I realize how much work it goes in and how the end product was probably not what whoever wrote these romances was dreaming up when they first started writing it. I'm sure a lot of things got cut, and some of the things we may not like about it are not totally in their control, and I totally get that. I appreciate all the work that goes into it. But I will say, for me, what makes it bad is that there needed to be more, not that something was done badly. I wish that for every romance, that there's more. I can never get enough. Like more content, more dialogue, more whatever. Expand upon it, please. So the romance that I don't like the most in Dragon Age, honestly, is the Iron Bull romance, which makes me a target for my best friend who loves the Iron Bull, and my work wife, Jen, who loves the Iron Bull. I get it, I know, but I just can't get over how it can't, to me, and we just did his episode like in December, I think. And that was what made me actually not like him, was doing the research for his character, because of how much I was able to overlook his Ben Hassrath training and like how little he actually gives away about it until you start researching like what they do, what his backstory is. If you have the World of Thedas, like volumes 1 and 2, so you can read up on his backstory. I think up until his, you know, should I save the Chargers or not, he's totally not on your side. And then he only pretends to be on your side sometimes if you don't save the Chargers. But even if you do save them, to me, it never felt genuine until the absolute very end. And then it was like bare minimum to me. I feel like there needed to be more to expand on why you should trust him now, because it just felt like he's still just a spy, he just was manipulating you for a really long time. And he's not the only romance option in any game that does something like that. It's just he wasn't given the opportunity to like clear the air about it the way he should have, I think. And so to me, it made the romance feel really tainted.
So, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, how is this different than Solus or Blackwall?
I don't think it's different in most ways. It's definitely different from Blackwall in that Blackwall does eventually like come clean and isn't spying on you. He's just lying about who he is. So like the ramifications of the lie they don't reverberate out into the Inquisition so much as they reverberate into your relationship. Solus and him are definitely much more similar. Solus, the only saving grace for me for him is that he doesn't sleep with you as a liar. Like honestly, the Iron Bull romance specifically when he remains Ben Hassrath especially is horrible. Like when you are playing the Trespasser DLC and that Kunari lady, whoever, I can't remember what her name was, but she like tells him to turn on you and he's like, "Oh, all right." Like no regrets, no thought, nothing about it. It's literally just instantaneous, so you could realize the entire relationship you had was all a lie, and that included sex, that included you like bearing your soul and maybe finding new boundaries about yourself with the whole BDSM aspect of it. So it's very nefarious. I don't think it's very different from Solus, other than the fact that Solus definitely pulls away a lot. Well, pulls away in general. Like Bull will never do that. He will pretend to be in a romance with you no matter what. So, but it doesn't really matter. Like the impact is the same. They all three of them lied to someone that they are supposed to be in love with, and that is wrong.
That's fair.
Okay. I have some thoughts. Shelby, as for your Anders is the worst because he doesn't come out about your sexuality, neither does Meryl. Meryl has no opinions whatsoever and does not share them. So for her just to not even have like a, oh, but Hawk, you're a female, you know, like we should be in this type of relationship, or would you even like me because I am a female? Or, you know, a male option, like I've been interested in men before. She doesn't have any of those conversations. So to disregard Anders because he doesn't tell a female Hawk that he has been with men before, I invalidate your point.
I think my issue is less that he has not told you about his history in a general sense. It's more that he enlists you to go and help his previous lover and doesn't tell you that they were lovers if you're a woman. And there is different dialogue versus female Hawk and male Hawk.
Because he does tell you if you're a male Hawk.
Yeah, that's more my issue. But I don't really care about Meryl that much. So anyway.
I mean, also same.
Meryl's romance makes me feel icky now.
Same with me.
Because you're old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue, Jen.
Austin, I agree. I do not think that a Fenris rivalmance is anything that anybody should ever do. It's not good on so many different levels. I don't know how you and I have agreed this whole episode on every point. It is quite strange. I don't know where I'm at.
It's because we haven't really talked about Anders. Really. It's really where we're at.
In a shocking turn of events, I also agree with you that the Iron Bull can be one of the worst romances if he is still Ben Hassrath. But for me, he never is. So it never is. He's always going to be best boy for me.
Yeah. And I think part of the choice is like with saving the Chargers with Bull, especially in a romance, is that getting Bull to realize that his loyalty really never was with the Kunari. Mm-hmm. It was with the people that were around him. And I think that he can't fully give himself into a relationship until he realizes that. It's not that he's unwilling. I don't think it's that he's unwilling to give himself into the relationship, but that the Kun is holding him back in a way.
Yeah. I also really loved playing as a Kunari, romancing him, showing him that not all Talvashah are these mindless, heathens out there. I thought that was also really healing for him to see that a Talvashah can be somebody as important as the Inquisitor. I'm totally going to cheap out on this answer. The worst romance option in all of Dragon Age is Hawk. Hawk doesn't deserve anybody.
I don't know why we all didn't think of that one.
I mean, just Hawk shouldn't be in the majority of these relationships.
Very fair.
Yeah, actually, I'll see your Hawk and raise you one when you wake up with a nug in the brothel. Also the worst. Never do that. Why would they make that?
Yeah. Oh, but then Hawk also has the best interaction in the brothel where you could wake up with a Chantry sister and she's shaming you in the corner. That one was amazing.
Yeah,
I loved
that one's
that
great.
one.
Okay,
Romance
well,
and Nug.
no, definitely not. I feel like those are some good hot takes. We didn't burn it down. We didn't, disagree too much. I feel like there was a lot of agreement there. But I'm kind of curious, in your two expert opinions, since y'all have the romance podcast, what do you think distinguishes Dragon Age romance from other RPGs? And what makes it special?
So, Dragon Age Origins, I'm sorry, but yeah, basic. This was one of the original standard romance formats of give gift, raise approval, have romance.
Do side quest.
Yes, do side quest. Pass loyalty mission. And I guess that was kind of new to it also, is that, it also, you had to not only interact with, like the Stardew Valley process of like give gift, get wife, you had to do something beyond it in Origins, which was a newfound thing. The DA2 bringing in the friendship versus rival romance, that was really groundbreaking. I had never seen any other game do something along that style where you could stand up to somebody and be confrontational, yet still have a relationship, a physical romantic relationship with them. I feel like that's actually a little bit more realistic to how actual real world marriages and relationships work, because my husband and I don't agree on everything every step of the way. We fight, we argue, we push each other to change our minds on topics that need to be discussed. And that's why I think the rivalmance with Anders is so good, because you can actually make him see things differently. Inquisition, getting rid of all indicators on where you stand with a person made it so that way you actually had to pay attention to what the person wanted, not necessarily what the Inquisitor wanted. But if you want to raise Sarah's approval, you have to listen to what she's telling you. If you decide like, oh, I'm going to be the new elf queen and everything I do is elfie, 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 you're not going to be able to romance Sarah. It's just not going to happen. So I loved the fact that Inquisition got rid of all indicators. It made it a lot more difficult. And I may have had to look up a guide online or two, but it made it so that way you really had to focus on the relationships that you were trying to build.
So in Inquisition, you can kind of tell where you stand with people by how they greet you when you talk to them. And so one time my game glitched during my Solus romance playthrough, and Solus did his standard greeting instead of the lover greeting. And I freaked out. I was like, what did I do? I've ruined my playthrough. But it was just a glitch.
Yeah. I also love that Larian picked that up. I mean, approval ratings you can still totally see, but why, hello there, darling, versus, my favorite traveling companion. I love the fact that words change.
Can we bring back the fable process of getting a wife? I want to tell jokes and fart and raise someone's approval and get them to marry me.
No, thanks. Anyway, Virvada, what do you think?
Just looking ahead to your next question, that for me is why the romances are distinguished in Dragon Age. So the question is, how do the romantic relationships in Dragon Age reflect, impact, or foil the larger themes and world building of the games? And when I'm thinking about Dragon Age romances, obviously they're not the only games with romance in them, and they're not, and obviously BioWare, who made Dragon Age, revolutionized video game romance right around this time with Mass Effect and Dragon Age. But the difference between Mass Effect and Dragon Age romances is that the romances literally have real world effects on what's going on, the way that Mass Effect romances don't. They can affect the individual that you're romancing, but they don't have plot implications. Like, And not only that, but the narrative aspect of the romances are really what set them apart because they are so well embedded in your playthrough and they are very fleshed out. They don't feel like a side quest like what romance in video games has typically been in history and what still sometimes happens, like with Bethesda games, where it's like, yeah, you can go do this one little thing and then your follower will give you a buff when you sleep with them in a bed. Cool, that's it. Or, even in Dragon Age Origins, like I know Jen said it was basic because of the mechanics behind it of like giving a gift and getting approval, but still the fact that that existed in a way with your followers and not just a random NPC is different than other games. You know what I mean? Like, and not to mention, it blew my mind when I was 16 and I was playing this game because I did not grow up playing Dungeons and Dragons. So that was my first intro to a Dungeons and Dragons type game. And I was like, I can be freaking queen? Like, what? And then Morrigan, if you romance her and everything that goes on with like, or if you romance Alistair as a female warden and you have to let your boyfriend sleep with Morrigan so that you both don't die trying to kill the archdemon, or is that what they're called? I just blanked. Anyway, yeah, so it's just, to me, that is what separates them. I mean, and then the pinnacle of all plot related romance is the Soulless romance. Like, there is no other romance like it. Where, I mean, I played that game when it first came out. I took a week of leave when I was in the Navy to play that game when it came out. And when I finished it in that week, and I romanced Soulless my first playthrough. And when I played that and the big reveal happened, I was not well. And then the Trespasser DLC just makes it worse. So the way that it's tied into the main plot, it makes it feel so important. And it already feels important to you because you're pursuing a romance with them. But it's just, that is really what makes them stand apart from other games' romances.
And I think that's a really great point about like how they affect the world. And like a great example is Mass Effect. If we think about the Garrus romance, no one in universe ever comments on that except for your companions. You're telling me that if the Citadel community found out that Commander Shepard was romancing a Turian, who, I mean, the First Contact War is not that far removed from galactic history at this moment. Like, there are people who are still alive who fought in that war. So you're telling me that no one in the entire galactic community would be, I feel like the news tabloids would be having a field day with that.
So I'm gonna actually you here.
Oh, well, I'm not a Mass Effect expert.
But I am a Garrus expert. And if you're walking around the Citadel in Mass Effect 2, the advertisements that play in the background are then tailored to your romance option. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, I get an advertisement that goes, Commander Shepard, I see you have been traveling with Garrus Vicarian for quite some time now. Would you like to upgrade his weapon? And so they do. I mean, it's so basic and minor, but it's cute.
But
that's fun. I really like that. Go ahead, Austin.
But I do like, and I like that people comment on your relationships in Dragon Age, and like even from like Origins, where it's like even Wynn's annoying thing of whatever she's trying to do. But like, I love when she's with an Alistair romance and she's like, I'm here to give you the birds and the bees talk. And I just think that's really funny. And I love when they have comments, and especially in, your companions will tease your romance option or whatever, which is hilarious. And it just makes it feel more real. And it makes the like companion party also feel more like the close-knit family that they're trying to portray them as.
I loved it when they commented on the, like, I'm going to randomly kiss you right now. Oh, well, don't mind me, Or stupid little Ogren saying, I like watching.
Oh my God.
I did not like that one.
God.
Ogren.
Ogren gives me the ick.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
As for the how they reflect and such, I was just going to add really fast that they, the romance is because they have the added thing in Dragon Age of where, especially with Origins and Inquisition, where you get to pick your race and your background, unlike other games where, well, unlike Mass Effect really is what I'm comparing it to because it's the other BioWare game and other games by BioWare that came before, you have the political aspects of your race to play with and also your background aspects. So like the real world in Dragon Age have the whole Mage and Templar war thing going on. So it's really interesting if you romance Cullen as a mage and like you can reflect that added tension within your relationship with him and you can kind of heal it a little bit. It feels cathartic. You can't fix Mage Templar relations, but you can make one Templar like mages, and that feels like progress. So there's one example there. You can do that with a bunch of them. I mean, Kunari romance with Bull is another one as a Talvashoth Kunari. So I think they do a really good job having these real world impacts with your relationships romantically and otherwise in Dragon Age.
Great answers. Thank you guys. Yeah, this is one I think about a lot. Like what makes it different? What makes it something we just like always want to come back to? I'm not sure. I know. I don't think that I don't even think the writers like could say these are all of the things that make this something people want to come back to because I think there's always like just a little bit of like magic in there, truthfully, that just like makes this a great story, makes this a great game, makes this something people want to return to. And I don't necessarily think it's limited to just Dragon Age. I think we see some of this in Baldur's Gate 3 as well. And I think there are obviously other games that do have this kind of same like the romances are just that good that we return to them a lot. But Dragon Age does feel special to me. But
Yeah.
did you have something else to add?
I was just gonna say it's the magic of all those people coming together to make it. Like that's how it's good.
Yeah. So true. So okay, my next question is if you had the chance to influence the development of a future Dragon Age game, what changes, improvements, or suggestions would you give about romance and relationships?
Couple came to mind. I loved the rivalmance aspect of it. And so I would love to see another, not necessarily the exact same way that they did it in DA2, but something along those lines where I can challenge your opinions. And that doesn't mean that you're no longer going to want to date me.
Obviously, bring back rival and friendship mance is an option for them. I think would be a good option because I think they're bad names for them because rival is more of like you guys said where you challenge the person and friendship is more of an enabler. So often the friendship romances in Dragon Age 2 didn't end as well. Like your character that you were in a relationship with didn't grow as much as they could have. So I think that's an option, but also just a little change for me would be there is just not nearly enough content. I know it costs a lot of money to have people record lines and maybe mocap and write all these things. I get it, but it really adds so much to have others talk about your relationship, not just your companions. I want more reflection in the world because whoever you are playing as is always such an important person. You're not going to play a game and be like your average sim unless you're playing The Sims, you know? So you're going to be the center of the universe of whatever game you're playing. The people need to talk about you and they're probably going to know about whoever you're in a relationship with. I want it to be more public. I want it to have more conversation, more running around banter, more people talking about it, noticing your progression. Maybe if you break up or if you got married or something, I don't know. Like they need to talk about it more outside of your companions and within your companions. I just want more of that because that makes me feel so happy to hear those lines whenever they come. And they're far too rare in Dragon Age, even in Inquisition. There's just not enough of that.
The romance culmination scene shouldn't be the night before the big final battle. give that to me. If it works within the storyline for a specific character, let the physical aspect of the romance happen multiple times throughout the storyline. But with Hawk, we were given like 10 to 15 years in Kirkwall, right? Or was it closer to 7? Now I'm forgetting. But the fact
10.
that it's about 10. Okay. The fact that the romance scene only happened, like, are you telling me that my Hawk only had sex with Isabella twice in 7 years? That's not possible. Like that just doesn't happen. And so not holding off a romance scenes until the end of the game, integrate them throughout the storyline. I also really loved the way that Origins did it, to where if I want to kiss my lover at any given time, let me turn around and kiss my lover. I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that every day, whenever I was done playing, I went back to camp and I had a fantastic night, and then hit save and then shut down the game for the night. Like, to me, that's like, all right, that's a good night at the camp, and then let me go to actually put my real world physical body to bed. That's the way I want to end every night.
I think I so agree with that. And there's two things that I would want to like add and change in here. And one of them is that, and I like one of the things that I like about Baldur's Gate. And I think at this point, like I do still prefer like most of the Dragon Age romances to Baldur's Gate romances in general. Maybe that's a hot take, but I like that Baldur's Gate, there's so many different forms of intimacy in those romances. Like you have different moments where it's not just all, oh, we'll bang, okay, the shepherd line or whatever. And it's like you dance with Will, you sit under the stars with Gale or whoever, and like these can happen as they keep going. And I think that we need that. And I also want to bring back like the intentional gift giving, like not just like, oh, let's raise our approval, but like I give Liliana a nug and there's a scene where she receives that, and just kind of more showing different ways people show love rather than like physical intimacy or just words of affirmation.
I feel that. I don't necessarily like hate the Liliana romance, but I do think that that's a cute moment. But we're like way over time, so let's move it on to our last question, which is romance predictions for Dragon Age Dreadwolf. I have two things that I really want to say. Please, a lesbian romance that like doesn't hate themselves. That would be great. I would love that. Number 2 is a dwarf romance, because we've never had one. Those are my 2 requests, please.
I would also like to add on the caveat that they are a lesbian who also doesn't hate men. Like, I don't want to see that trope of like, oh, I'm a lesbian because all men suck ass. No, I don't want that one.
Very fair.
Agreed. Yes, also, please give us a dwarf to romance. I know that it's very difficult to program and the physicality of it to make it all work right. I understand it's a small, big undertaking, but still, please make it work.
It's clearly possible. Larian did it. We can do it, guys. It's 2024. I also will extend this to, I have heard tell that there's like a non-binary companion in Dreadwolf. Maybe a romance with them. Something, maybe just anybody having some kind of gender identity outside of male or female, and a romance involving that would be nice representation. Would be cool. Let's do that. I don't know.
And can I also get a shout out for the aces and arrows out there? Like, we know that we have chaste romances, but that's just because of like Sebastian and his religious beliefs doesn't want to have sex. Exactly.
I know it's representation, but I don't like Sebastian.
But Sebastian sucked so much that I forgot about him in worst romances.
Ooh, that's a burn.
That is the insult of the century. I also just want to say, like, we don't need to give mean, shitty just people more of a platform in Sebastian. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
I don't know how you would work an arrow into a video game where we're asking for romance options, but
They could just be a companion that's not a romance option, and they specifically say why. That literally could be it.
uh,
I mean, I do feel like you get a little bit of that with Isabella, because at the beginning she's like, I'm not about feelings. Like, I don't want to be in a relationship. Like, I just want this to be physical. And
Yeah,
like, you can change, but
maybe if they don't change, that would be good. Or revolutionary. We could have romances separate from sex. Some with both, some with either or, some with only one or the other. I don't know. I know it's all time, but you have it. You have it. Okay. It's been almost 10 years.
I also have a very hot, spicy take that I will share off air.
Okay.
The best kind.
Are there any other thoughts about Dreadwolf or just anything else that we want to share before we wrap for the evening?
I would be remiss if I did not just quickly add, as a Soullessmancer, I better have some closure after 10 years of waiting. I need to know if my love means anything, if it will help at all in the coming fight. Will it convince him? I don't know. I need to know. Please do something with that.
That is fair. I will be very disappointed if we don't get anything.
I love Dragon Age romances, and I want some resolution from my warden. I want to know what happened to that poor little girl. Like, please tell me what's going on there. Are her and Zevran still running around together? What's going on with them? I need to know.
Did she ever get that tattoo off her face? That's what I want to know.
No, she did not. She kept it there forever.
All right. Well, thank you both for being on this show. It's always a pleasure. We always go way over time because we just enjoy talking with you all. But it's great to have you here. So obviously you all are on the Two Girls, One Ship podcast and on all the Discords. You can check them out there. Definitely go give those podcasts a listen. You can find us on various episodes. I think I have guested on there for various fandoms. I think I hold the record for the most right now.
Oh, wait, yes, because Assassin's Creed, Dragon Age, Holocron and Star Wars. So yes, you have been on 3 ones.
So I held the record. All right. So yeah, you can check that out. It's a great podcast. Thank you all for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. You can find us on Twitter at DA Lorecast.
If you have any lore questions, topics to unpack, or side character suggestions, join our Cups Podcasting and More Discord server. It's easily the best place on the internet. You can also support us financially through our Patreon. You can find us there on patreon.com/DragonAgeLorecast.
The Dragon Age Lorecast is part of the Robots Radio Network. For more information about the Robots Radio Network, join the Discord server via the link in our episode description.
If you enjoyed the show or learned something new today, please subscribe, leave us a review, and join the Patreon. And if you enjoyed our intro and outro music, give a big thank you to Pipeman Studios. Thank you, Pipeman. Thanks again for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. We'll see you next time.
Hi, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Ariel.
And we're the hosts of the Legend of Zelda Lorecast, a podcast about all things Legend of Zelda, from Errol to Zora,
and all the fun things in between.
If you're ready to dive deep and learn more about the Legend of Zelda lore and everything surrounding it, come join us on the Legend of Zelda Lorecast. You can find us on Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google, or wherever else you get your podcasts.
We hope to see you soon.